Hey there, everybody. Uh, Last night, a weasel got into our chicken coop, and we have we have one chicken remaining, um, and our Drake Norris suffered some wounds as well, but only he and one other male are left of the ducks now too, and so we are shoring up our coop defenses, trying to figure out what went wrong, and being that I've been working on getting everything cleaned up and all of the bodies taken care of, and also working on the grieving process myself. I just have a few thoughts, and if you guys will humor me, I think I want to talk about it a little bit. So there is the tiny little crack in the coop wall that was not really there earlier, I guess. And it appears that it snuck in through there and just had open access to all of in here. I've cleaned out all of the bedding that I can. I'm about to bring the shop vac in to get some of these corners and things. And so we're going to be sticking another piece of wood in the gap here and re-affixing these two guys, to try and get everything squared away, make it safe for whenever we begin to rebuild. Nothing ever leaves the farm, though, unless there is a value in it leaving, and there is no value in sending off all of my dear friends to an incinerator or to a compactor or to anything like that. So they will all be turned into more compost. There is approximately 300 pounds of wood chips right there. It's all been moved by hand because the tractor doesn't fit into this space. And so there's a lot of moisture in here still, which is convenient, but in working through my feelings on this pile of wood chips, there are some things that I've been thinking about, so I think I'm going to talk about them here. So I'm in this place where I'm thinking about how I think about guilt, because I feel guilty about not doing a better job, and for many of us, that's a really uncomfortable feeling. I struggled for years with having a healthy way to process this sort of feeling, and back in the day, I very easily was able to externalize these things and found ease in assigning blame elsewhere. And that's a serious defense mechanism for the fragility of how we think of ourselves in our own storylines and our own hero motifs in our lives. But I think that the sensations, the physical and the mental and the emotional sensations of guilt are a beneficial biological adaptation to our species' ability to reflect on things that have happened. If there is that adrenaline boost from the guilt feeling, and there is those physiological changes that come along with all of those endorphins pumping into our system, where our brain is moving faster and our innards tighten, and our brain starts just whirring through its paces trying to think of things, and if nothing else, aside from long distance running and the ability to sweat, our ability to notice patterns is a huge boon to our species and our evolutionary capabilities. And this pattern recognition and the replaying of things in our mind, through this avenue of physiological chemistry known as guilt, we're able to see patterns in a more minute and replayed and over replayed sense. And it still sucks. It's still a really uncomfortable feeling, and I'm not a fan. I'm not saying that I feel good about feeling guilty, because I don't. But I can take these lessons that I am learning and finding the things that I had overlooked, and I can use that information to further improve what we're doing and keep everything I care for safe. And I think that's really the value that I can pull from this experience that has otherwise been nothing but negative, because it's nothing but negative, or it would be if I refused to learn from the experience. Let's talk about something happier. Yeah. As you can see here, we are most of the way through another 20 yards of wood chips. We'll take a quick note. This is the mulching fork that I am working with right now. It is a 5-tine. I don't think the brand really matters. I think this was either a Home Depot or an Ace special. Support your local hardware stores when you can, folks. But so I would like to get something that has at least 3, maybe 7 more forks. But something in the 8 to 12 range would be great for not having the chips fall through. It can be a little better when you have leaves and needles and things, but if it's mostly chips, you get a lot of that. And then that's what you get into the wheelbarrow. So the more teeth you have, the easier it generally is. I've worked with ones that had a 12-tine and they're a little bit floppy. I think if I had the option, I'd go with one that has a handle that is integrated to the head, or at least some kind of shaft leading into a joinery mechanism instead of something that attaches only at the tip. But so we deal a lot with wood chips here. It's our main method of composting, and we were having a discussion with someone online the other night about the acidity of wood chips and the way that certain species interplay with each other. And they asked for a source pointing to pine chips themselves being more or less acidic, or a breakdown of the acidity to them. And I was like, oh, I got this. And I pointed to the UNH study that is linked in the description below. PDF warning. But so they came back and said, yeah, I've seen that one, but it really talks about the needles themselves. And so I went on a hunt, and I found the second of the articles, second PDF warning, that I could find that talks about the acidity of wood chips relative to species. And while the extraction methods are different, it turns out that pine wood chips also do not additionally acidify your soil over and above any other species. There's just not a mechanism by which they are significantly more acidic. And so one of the things that struck me as interesting was that the measured pine, the average, and I don't have the range memorized, but pine was around 4.5 pH. Maple was next with a 4.75 pH, and then cedar had a 4.88, and then it got into beech and birch and I believe oak. And they all topped out around like 5.25 plus or minus 0.55. So all of them well under the 6.5 of, a basic or a standard deviation neutral pH. And so I don't really have anything to follow that up with. I just think it's interesting. So once again, I encourage you all to Use as many wood chips in as many applications as you can find. While I agree with some other folks online that they are not the best mulch for certain annual gardens, it is not due to nitrogen sapping or nitrogen hunger. It's more to do with the fungal and bacterial balance that these different types of systems have. So we still use a lot of grass and small woody perennials, or the herbaceous bordering on woody perennials, to do a lot of mulching for our annual beds. But wood chips are just a great way to bring a slightly lower pH, and that's what gets us all those micronutrients from the rocks that we have in the subsoil. And yeah, get out there. Appreciate the lives that you have around you. Think about a time when things didn't go your way, and it might have been, at least in part, your fault. That's okay. It's okay to feel bad, and it's okay to feel sad. The important part is to pick up and learn from it and improve, so that next time you can make a different mistake and hopefully grow from that one too. So I appreciate you all. Hope you're well, and hope that you are not suffering at the hands of weasels. Till next time, thanks for watching. Happy planting.